Hey guys, this is Doug May with That Audio Guy. In this video we're going to take a look at the oscillator window here on the layer page. As you can see, some of these parameters change as I toggle between sample mode and synth mode. One thing to note is that anytime you want to reset a parameter to its default value, all you need to do is right click the parameter and then hit reset to default value. Let's take a look at these parameters that you see when the layer's in sample mode. So here we have the timbre slider. This allows you to manipulate the tonal qualities of the sample by affecting the harmonics. You have two different modes, crush and shift. Let's take a listen to what those sound like. This start slider here allows you to tell Omnisphere when during the sample to start when you play a key on the keyboard. This is especially useful when you've uploaded your own audio and you want Omnisphere to start at a specific place in your audio when you play a key on your keyboard. Right here we have a toggle for reversing the sample. If you're in synth mode, these three sliders allow you to adjust the shape of the waveform, which will in turn adjust the sound. This analog knob here allows you to mix in analog character. This knob here allows you to adjust the phase of the waveform. Phase refers to which part of the waveform you want to start at when you hit a key. You'll find these letters right here in this window in both synth mode and sample mode. These letters stand for frequency modulation, ring modulation, wave shaper, unison, harmonia, and granular. In Omnisphere, you'll notice these little magnifying glasses. Anytime you see one of those and you click on it, it'll open up another window that contains more information. As you can see, it opened up this oscillator zoom window, and now we see tabs for all of those letters that I referred to on the other page. Let's make our way through these tabs and talk about what each one of them means. Under the main tab, you'll have the same parameters that were on the layer page, including parameters that allow you to control the pitch. These other tabs are effects that you can apply to the layer. What frequency modulation allows you to do is take some input waveform and use the shape of that waveform to affect the pitch of your sample or sound. The best way to understand this stuff is just to hear it. This frequency slider will adjust the frequency of the modulation source. So if I turn it way down to a low frequency, you'll actually hear what it's doing to the sample and how it's oscillating the pitch in the same shape as the sine wave that you're using to modulate the pitch. The depth can be thought of as the amplitude of this modulation waveform. If you've got a bigger sine wave, it's going to be modulating your sample or synth at a larger range. You can boost the effect. Ring modulation does the same thing as frequency modulation, only in ring modulation it affects the multiples of the frequency as well, so you get a lot of higher tones. The wave shaper allows you to add a few different types of distortion. Down here you've got controls for all three different types of distortion. You've got an overall mix slider. These tabs right here allow you to determine where to place this distortion effect, either after the oscillator, after the filter, or after the amplifier. With the unison effect, we can actually add more voices to our sound. Depth slider controls how much of that effect goes into play. The spread slider lets us determine how much of the stereo field we want to use. This Octave Editor right here lets you control where you want to place some of those voices. Detune lets you detune them slightly. And you can either do that at smaller intervals with fine or coarse. The analog slider lets you mix in analog character. And the drift slider lets you control how much pitch drift you want. What you can do with harmonia is actually add up to 4 of the same oscillator to your layer. So if we look here, I've got these 3 oscillators on. What I can do is I can take this first one and bring it up to a third interval, keep this second one at the same interval, take this third one and bring it down an octave, and then I can mess with the pan a little bit. Mess with the detune a little bit. And it takes your sound from this to this. So I mean, you can mess with those parameters and get pretty cool sounds, nice and thick and wide. You've also got parameters here for adjusting the shape of the waveform. Over here we've got individual oscillator mix sliders, and then we've got an overall mix slider right here. What the granular does is it takes your audio file or your waveform and it chops it up into little pieces called grains. And then you can use the granular to manipulate the grains to get all sorts of crazy sounds. Just as an example, I've uploaded an audio file. It sounds like this. And if I apply the granular and mess with some of the settings, now it sounds like this. Pretty crazy. You can get some really cool stuff. So a lot of those are effects that you really just need to play with in order to get a handle of what they're doing. Again, you can use all of those effects in both sample mode and synth mode. They can also be accessed just by directly clicking any of these icons down here. So that's the oscillator window. In the next video, we're going to talk about these filter windows right here, so stay tuned, you guys.